Hello, dearies, and welcome to this week's Confessions from a Telemarketer. Or, not telemarketer, I'm sorry. Confessions from the Damned. Wrong show. But yeah, so this week's episode, we're back from taking a break. We were on hiatus for 2 weeks. So now we're back with Olivia's kind of story. This specific episode is called Arsenal. So, it's pretty long, so let's just go ahead and get started.
What is power? Who has that power? And why do we need it so bad? A single moment in your life can be completely torn from you in a single instant. What you do after that moment is completely up to you and how you define that moment. Will you be a victim, or will you be the killer? Certain situations make us the victim without any power, but that one certain decision that you made led up to that point where you felt powerless. Sometimes you have to give in because there is no point in fighting, and sometimes you keep fighting until you regain the power. It honestly depends on who you are as a person. Some people are weaker than others, yet some are even stronger. You have the choice to be powerful or powerless. It's up to you.
Going back to 2013, Olivia is driving on a deserted mountain highway. The trees are rolling by as she drives around the curves and follows her headlights to her destination. It is dark outside, and the half moon is shining bright in the black sky. Olivia is on the phone. She begins talking into her headset. No, this is some guy I met on Craigslist. I don't know, he's hot. And I'm super horny tonight for some reason. Ugh. Trust me, Landon, I can totally handle myself. She pulls into a dim-lit driveway and drives down the path towards a cabin at the end, tucked away in some trees. Hey, I better let you go. I'm here at his place. Look, I'll message you when I get home later. Okay. Alright, bye, Landon. Olivia hangs up with Landon and texts the guy that she's meeting and says, I'm here. She gets out of the car and begins walking on the gravel up towards the door. She knocks twice on the door and hears nothing. Well, except for some dogs barking and the neighbor's dogs. She notices that there are no lights on in the house and it's completely quiet outside. She looks back at her car and then pulls out her phone. No response yet from the man she is supposed to be meeting. She knocks on the door 3 more times. I'm gonna leave if you don't open the door. It's fucking cold out here. She looks back around to her car again and pulls out her phone from her pocket. This time there is one message. She opens the message and it reads, Behind you. Her eyes grow big and a hand cups her mouth and she begins screaming.
crash and I break down. Your words in my head, knives in my heart. You build me up and then I fall apart, 'cause I'm only human.
Olivia's alarm is going off really loud. It's 8 o'clock in the morning and she reaches over and hits the alarm button. She makes out a loud grunt and sits up. Next to her, lying naked with just a sheet over him, is her boyfriend Jeff. She looks to his side of the bed and notices that there's a couple of empty beer bottles, a straw with a line of Coke next to it, a bag of shrooms, and a pipe half smoked full of marijuana. Can you say addict? She looks at him with disdain and gets up. She walks into the bathroom and closes the door. She looks at herself in the mirror. She looks tired. She looks hungover. Definitely stressed out. She dips her fingernail in some white powder on the sink and sniffs it up her right nostril. She turns the water faucet on and begins washing her face. Nearly an hour later, she walks out of the bathroom and Jeff is still asleep on her bed. She walks over to the bed and says, Jeff. Jeff. Jeffrey. Get the hell up. You have to meet Erik today. Jeff. She picks up a pillow and throws it at his head. Jeff jumps up and says, Jesus fucking Christ, Olivia. Olivia, all dressed for the day, walks over to her dresser. Well, fucking wake up when I tell you for the fourth fucking time. Jeff gets up and scratches his balls and says, I had a rough night. Give me a break, alright? Olivia turns around and says, please, that is all you've had in your life, are breaks given to you by kind, loving people like myself, and then you turn around and get all fucked up. You treat me like shit. I'm a piece of shit, apparently. Jeff goes to embrace her as she starts to cry. Jeff says, baby, no, you're not a piece of shit. Olivia pulls away from him, wipes her tears, and says, just leave me alone. Jeff starts to talk when the doorbell rings. Astrid is outside waiting for Olivia so that they can ride to her shop together. Olivia definitely pulls away now and says, Jeff, just do what you need to do and get the fuck out. I need some space. Jeff says, Olivia, what the fuck? Why do you have to go and be such a bitch? Olivia swipes her hand across Jeff's face. She leaves 2 claw marks on his cheek. Her eyes turn an orange color and she says, don't you ever call me a bitch again. She grabs her purse and she opens the front door. Astrid is smiling and says, ready? Olivia shuts the door behind her and says, yeah, let's go. Over at Landon and Erik's place, Landon walks Troy to the front door and escorts him out. Troy turns to Landon and pulls him into his body. Troy kisses Landon passionately, and Landon pulls back. Troy smiles and walks down the hallway to the exit. Landon shuts the door to the apartment and turns around to find Erik standing in the hallway. What the hell was that all about? Landon shakes his shoulders and begins walking back into his bedroom. I have no fucking idea, but I was not expecting that. When Landon gets back into his room, he notices that he has a text message. It's from Liam. His heart moves just a bit until he opens up the message and it says, hey, would you like to go to a Lady Gaga concert with Brad and I? We have an extra ticket. Landon looks up and just thinks for a moment, and he begins to text back. Olivia begins setting up her shop to open for the day when Astrid starts rolling out 2 fat lines of cocaine for her and Olivia. Astrid says, so what is going on with you and Jeff? She takes a line up her nose and sniffs. Olivia walks over to where the other line is and snorts it up her left nostril. Ooh. Oh. Olivia says, oh, just stupid shit. Like him getting totally fucked up and then treating me like shit. Just like this morning, I brought it up to him and he began to get all sweet and mushy. And then I say one thing about him having a drug problem, and he flips the fuck out on me and calls me a bitch. Ashley looks at her and says, yeah, that one I would totally get rid of. Girl, he's just going to bring you down with him. Olivia walks over to the front door and flips the closed sign to an open sign and says, I know, but I honestly love him, and he's the first guy that I ever cared about like that since my accident. Plus, he usually gives me the attention that I need, and I'm a very, very needy person, but I can't just give up on someone I love. That's just not in my nature. Astrid takes a drink of her coffee and says, yeah, I get where you're coming from, but still, you have to think in the long run. Is this really worth it? And is this the life that I want to live? Olivia walks over to the shelf full of books and begins putting some back into their places. So, have you found anything with your research to see if there's something that we can do to help Landon and the pack at all? Astrid pulls out an old book from her purse that she carries with her everywhere. Actually, I've been looking into this supposed pact of 1692 that Landon's and Regina's mothers made back in the 1600s with the devil. Olivia looks at her and says, that's a real thing? Astrid says, oh yeah. Apparently the Lycan pact made some sort of deal with the devil himself. In the end, Charlotte's entire bloodline and pact were completely wiped out except for Rosamond. Her and Charlotte were the only surviving members of the blood sacrifice. Olivia walks over to her counter and says, so what exactly was the pact that they made? Astrid says, that, my friend, is something that was never written to this date. Back in 2013, Olivia wakes up on a wood table. There is one light above her body and her arms and legs are tied to the table, and she is in her bra and panties. She begins screaming, ah! But there is nothing in return but silence. The room is dark and not very well lit at all. She begins to hear footsteps walk in the dark towards her. The man comes into the light that shines above her half-naked body. She notices that it is the man that she was intended to meet at the cabin from Craigslist. Olivia yells, why are you doing this? The man punches her in the face and she spits out blood as her head turns to the right. The man drops his pants and climbs onto the table. He reaches to her breasts and tears her bra off. She begins to realize what is starting to happen. She feels the stranger's warm, hard penis touch her inner thigh, and it makes her squirm and nauseous. The man slaps her in the face again, and her head falls to the left. The man reaches for her panties and rips them off as well. He reaches one hand down and sticks his hard cock inside Olivia's tight vagina and starts thrusting forward. Olivia lets out a big scream and he slaps her again. He begins to thrust harder and faster and starts pounding her deep. Her lifeless body begins laying there and she stops screaming. She turns her head to the right and a tear rolls down her face and lands onto the wood table. The man lets out a big and Olivia's eyes turn orange. She breaks the ropes that are holding her hands and she smashes the man's head with her two bare hands. His brain shoots through the top of his skull onto the ceiling, and most falling back down on top of Olivia. Blood begins gushing from the man's head all over Olivia's naked, bare body, and she pushes him onto the floor. She stands up from the table and starts shaking uncontrollably. Olivia is dusting her shelves when she hears the bell ring to the door. She says, "Welcome to Mystical Time Shop. Anything I can help you find today?" She gets down off the ladder and turns around. The man standing before her is Leo. Leo stands there and says,
"Yes, I'm looking for some wolf's bane."
Olivia begins walking over to her counter and says, "That is a very powerful herb. May I ask what it's going to be used for?" Leo walks over to the counter where Olivia is and says,
"Yes, I work for an estate, and the owner has asked me to acquire some wolfbane because there has been an infestation of wolves in the area, so she's taking precautions so that the wolves don't come onto the property."
Olivia grabs some wolfsbane from a glass jar on the shelf behind her and begins to put it into a bag. "Well, I guess that is a really good reason. Alright, it'll be $50 even." Leo hands her his card and she swipes it on the register. The register reads his card and accepts payment for the $50. She hands him a slip which he signs, and she hands him a shop bag with the wolfsbane in it. Leo says,
"Thank you, Olivia."
He walks out of the shop. Olivia looks at the card slip and notices that the name says Leo. She looks up and her mouth drops. About an hour later, Landon and Lana show up at the shop. Landon walks through the door of Olivia's shop, followed by Lana. He notices that Olivia is pacing by the cash register, and Astrid is sitting on one of the high-top tables sipping some tea. Landon walks up to the both of them and says, "Are you sure that it was Leo?" Olivia grabs the slip from the register and brings it to Landon. He reads the slip and says, "Yeah, that's Regina's Leo, the other pack leader." Lana says, "Shit, what are we gonna do? I can't believe you sold him wolfsbane." Astrid interrupts and says, "Hey, look, guys, she has never met this Leo before, and I can barely remember what he looks like. But I was in the back at the time. But she didn't know who she was selling it to, honestly. So calm it down." Landon looks at all of them and says, "Oh, we really got to think this through. Let's have everyone meet at the cabin, including Liam. I want him on this because he knows exactly who Leo is, and we're going to find out what he and Brad are really up to." A car pulls up to the gates of the estate of Charlotte. The wrought iron gates open wide and the car pulls through the red brick driveway and parks by the front door. In the car is Erik and Jeff. Erik says to Jeff, "Alright, stay in the car. I'm going to go talk to Regina for a minute and I'll be right back." Jeff lights up a joint and says, "Alright, man. I'll be here. Good luck with the cunt." Erik gives him a look and says, "Just stay here." Erik walks up to the front door and pulls out his phone. He texts Regina saying, "I'm here." About 4 minutes later, the front door opens and Regina is standing there in front of him. She has a long-sleeved shirt on and sweatpants. She oddly also has a pair of sunglasses on as well. Erik says, "God, don't you look homely today." Regina shifts her head and says, "Look, I asked you here because I need your help, okay?" Erik looks at her in disgust. "And why should I help you? You were the one who cheated on me and left me for another guy, another wolf." Regina says, "Look, I don't have time to argue with you right now. My mother or Leo doesn't even know that you are here and would... Erik interrupts and notices a bruise on her wrist when she goes to swoop her hair over her ear. Well, what? What the hell, Regina? Really? Really? He grabs her arm and pulls up her sleeve. Regina says, it's not that bad. Leo and my mom just get a little upset at me sometimes. Sometimes? Erik says. Look, are you sure this baby is mine? Regina pulls her sleeve back down and says, yes, Erik, it's yours. Leo and I haven't been together that long, and I'm already 4.5 months along. It's definitely yours. But according to their pact, I can't have children outside of wedlock, and the fact that if the pact found out that I was pregnant with not a future alpha would be very, very bad for everyone. Hell, the whole town. Erik looks at her as she takes her sunglasses off, and he starts shedding a few tears when he sees that she has a black eye. Erik says, I don't know what you want me to do right now. You're going to have to give me a moment to think. Do you have any idea what your mother and Leo are up to? Regina goes to start responding when Charlotte slams the door open from behind her and says, I'm about to leash the hounds and dump your body in Section 8 if you don't quit harassing my daughter and get the hell off my property. Now, boy. Erik doesn't say anything and proceeds to leave. Charlotte closes the door and Erik watches as Regina's head goes down like she is frightened and sad. Erik goes back to the car and opens the door. A pile of marijuana smoke rolls out of the car door and he gets in. Erik says, Jesus, dude, smoke much? Jeff says, sorry, dude, it's been a rough fucking morning. Are we leaving? Erik starts the car and drives back down the red brick driveway out of the estate. Meanwhile, inside, Regina starts walking away from Charlotte when she stops her. If you did anything to jeopardize our plan, I swear I will kill you and that baby myself. Regina continues walking back to her room. Everyone is at the cabin, including Landon, Lana, Scott, Troy, Braden, Astrid, Olivia, and Liam. They all spread out throughout the cabin. Landon says, alright, so we know that Leo is Regina's new man, and that he is the alpha of a pack ran by Charlotte. We thought that Charlotte didn't run with the pack anymore, but I guess we were wrong on that note. I still haven't spoken to my mother to see if she knows anything, but knowing her, she is probably up to something on her own, if not with Charlotte. Now comes the hard question. Who the hell is this Leo, and what is he up to? And is he the uber beast that is behind all of the murders? Liam interrupts and says, I don't believe that. I've known Leo for years, and I just couldn't see him doing something like that. Lana says, you'd be surprised at what people are capable of. Landon says, which begs the question, what is he and Brad up to? Liam says, what the fuck? Brad has nothing to do with any of this. He is not even a wolf, and they are just friends. They are working on the estate property, fixing things. Olivia interrupts and says, and you really believe that? He was very serious this morning when Leo came into my shop and specifically asked for something that could kill another wolf. That shit is serious. This is serious. Who knows? He could want to kill you so he can have Brad all to himself. Liam says, that's enough. I won't sit here and have everything and everyone belittle my relationship with my boyfriend and my friend as part of some sort of stupid ancient conspiracy going on. This is just complete and utter bullshit. Troy says, guilty feet have got no rhythm. Why are you getting so upset, darling? Landon says, you have to admit that ever since Brad got scratched that night at the cabin, he's been acting a little bit different. Liam starts grabbing his coat and begins walking towards the door. Yes, I have noticed, and our relationship is none of your business or this pack's. You all are on your own for this one. I can't stand to be around you people, especially you. You are pathetic. Landon says, well, There's the door. Don't let it hit you in the ass on the way out, fucking piece of shit. And where the hell are Erik and Jeff? Liam storms out and Landon turns to face everyone, just looking at him in awe. Erik pulls over the car off the road and enters the area of Section 7, right near the border of Section 8 and the estate. Erik stops the car and Jeff asks, "What are we doing?" Erik shuts the car off and begins getting out his special travel drug kit. He pulls out a little mirror, a straw, and a vial of cocaine. Jeff says, "Now that's my kind of party." Erik looks at him and says, "You're retarded. I need a moment. I'm going to go for a quick run." He sniffs a line and hands it to Jeff. Jeff takes the mirror and sniffs another of the lines. He says, "Bro, I completely understand what you're going through. You know how many chicks that I've knocked up and they want nothing to do with me?" Erik sniffs another line and says, "Gee, I really wonder why sometimes." Jeff looks at the window and says, "I ask myself the same thing every day." Erik rolls his eyes and gets out. Jeff follows him. Erik says, "Please stay here. I just need a minute." Jeff says, "Come on, dude. I need to run too. Olivia has been a total raging bitch lately." Erik strips down naked and says, "Fine, but don't get in my way." Erik morphs into his wolf form, a beautiful white wolf with glowing green eyes, and starts running through the trees. Jeff gets naked as well, while he is mimicking Erik yelling at him, and he morphs into a brown wolf with brown eyes and starts running after him. A few moments pass when the two wolves notice that they have crossed the boundary and is near Charlotte's estate. Erik decides to head over to the wall to be nosy. Little did they know, they would be coming up upon a revelation. Erik and Jeff stop and hide in the bushes net to the wrought iron gate wall. Hold on. Erik and Jeff stop and hide behind the bushes next to the wrought iron gate wall and notice that another car just pulls into the driveway of the estate near the front. They notice that the first person who gets out of the car is Leo, of course, because he lives there at the estate with Regina. But the most shocking surprise was the fact that there was another person getting out of the car, and that person was Brad. Brad follows Leo up the stairs to the front door and follows him inside. Charlotte looks clear to the wall before she shuts the door and smiles. A shiver runs down Erik's spine, and he begins to freak out. He begins running back to the car. Jeff slowly but surely begins to follow him. They hear a loud growl, and Erik hears a big yelp. He stops running and turns his white wolf head towards the direction that Jeff was following, and he realizes that he is nowhere to be seen. Erik begins tracing their paw prints back, and he comes upon the beast, tearing Jeff's whole wolf body completely to pieces. Jeff is squealing as the beast's claws and teeth rip into his coat and skin. The beast bites Jeff's head completely off and tosses it to the ground. When it hits the ground, Jeff's head has morphed back into his human self, and it rolls towards Erik. The beast howls at the cloudy gray sky. And Erik stares in shock as to how this beast is able to morph in broad daylight, and why is it on Charlotte's property. Erik begins running back to the car. He gets to the car and morphs back into his human self. He rushes to grab his clothes and even leaves his left shoe in the ditch as he hurries into the car. He shuts and locks his doors and can't breathe. He turns the car on and slams on the gas, causing the car to screech. and speeds off down the road towards the cabin. Inside Charlotte's house, Charlotte brings Leo and Brad into the main living area, and she sits down in her chair and lights up a cigarette. The two boys sit down and she blows out smoke at them. "So, boys, do you have what I asked you to get from Olivia's shop?" Leo stands up and pulls out a small bag with some wolfsbane in it. Charlotte takes the bag and stands up. "You may leave now, boys." She begins walking out of the living room and into another room. Standing by the fireplace is another woman in another room, smoking on a cigarette as well. Charlotte walks over to the woman and hands her the bag. "It's done. Now we can begin the final phase of our plan." The woman standing there turns around and is revealed to be Rosamond, Landon's mother, and says, "Good. Landon will never know what's coming to him. And that mutt Erik, what of him?" Charlotte says, "I told him that I would sick the hounds on him, and that's exactly what I did. Just the biggest of our hounds." "So if everything works out, he should be in pieces in the woods." "7 months ago, Regina and Leo are having a dinner with Charlotte. It is the first time that Leo is meeting Charlotte because him and Regina have decided to start dating, even though she has yet to break it off with Erik. Charlotte advises her that this is a bad decision and will affect the pacts in great deal. Leo asks politely if he can be excused from the dinner table and goes to use the facilities. Charlotte uses this as an advantage and excuses herself to go to get dessert. Leo gets done using the restroom and begins to walk down the hallway. Charlotte stops him and says, "Leo, I have a business proposition for you if you're interested." Leo turns around and says, "And what would that be, Miss Caulfield?" Charlotte creeps toward him and her eyes start glowing black. She says, "Oh, Leo dear, call me Mother." She raises her hand and scratches his inner arm as he looks deep into her eyes. He doesn't feel anything. She says, "Now, you are to go back to dinner and tell Regina that you will be happy to court her and that you would even move into the house here with her to watch over her." Leo says in a trance, "Yes, Mother, I will tell her." He turns and starts walking towards the dining room. He goes and sits down next to Regina. Charlotte then walks back into the dining room from the opposite side of the room and yells, "Now who's ready for some dessert?" Everyone is sitting in the cabin still debating on what to do and what exactly is going on. Astrid told everyone about the pact of 1692. Most of them were terrified. Some were just a little scared, and a couple were ready to fight whatever it was that is out there stalking the pack. All of a sudden, a half-naked Erik bursts into the cabin door and starts rambling craziness. Landon, Olivia, and Astrid run to his side. Landon says, "Oh my God, Erik, what happened? Are you alright?" Erik starts crying and says, "The beast attacked me and Jeff. It Olivia grabs him and says, "It did what, Erik?" Erik lets out a small whimper. "It ate Jeff and bit his head off." He screams, "Ah!" Olivia screams really loud, "Ah!" and her hands cup her mouth. She falls backwards and Lana catches her. The room begins to get loud as everyone begins to panic and talk over each other.
Being the victim doesn't get you anywhere in this world. The victims are usually the weaker of the human race and are overrun by the stronger ones. Sometimes the stronger ones think that they have the power, but they can't control everything. Once in a while, you can't save the weak. You see, it's not about size. It's not about being a god. It's not about being smart. It's not about being evil or good. It's about power.
Alright, there you have it. Episode 5. Arsenal. Seems like Landon's pack is starting to fall apart. And we found out Olivia is raped back in a couple years ago. So that was interesting to discover. Landon and Liam got into their first heated argument. Motherfuckers. So that was interesting. Let's see here. Notice that Olivia and Jeff had a fight and then he gets murdered. Of course. What are the odds? But Olivia sounds pretty upset. Wonder how she's going to recover from this one. Looks like Landon's probably not going to that Lady Gaga concert now that he pissed off Liam. And we did confirm that Brad and Leo are working together with Charlotte. And now apparently Rosamund is as well. So that's curious to see where that goes. And especially remember the Wolfsbane. Remember that Leo bought the Wolfsbane. And remember that Rosamund and Charlotte have it. Remember that. You're going to need that for a future episode, I think. But yeah, other than that, looks like Regina's getting the shit beat out of her. So yeah, but yeah. So that's pretty much it for episode 5. But yeah, tune in the next week for the next episode will be our final bio episode. We're going into specifically Rosamund's past, Landon's birth, how we know Charlotte and Rosamund know each other, shit like that, you know. But yeah, so yeah, that'll be the next episode. So that is it. So have a good night. Deuces.
I can hold my breath. I can bite my tongue. I can stay awake for days if that's what you want. Be a number one. I can fake a smile. I can force a laugh. I can dance and play the part if that's what you ask.